Hi, this is Chico Resch. You are listening to the Let's Go Devils podcast on the Primetime Radio Network.
This is Game Day Live. Happy Devils Super Bowl Sunday. Live from the Primetime Radio Studios here in beautiful New Jersey. Sorry for the late start. We were delayed by the truckers. That's all. We were delayed by the truckers talking trucker hockey. Vinnie, Parise, and I streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Twitter Live, and Twitch on the Primetime Radio Network before the Devils are taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. I got my voice back, Vinny. I was out day to day after Thursday. I was losing my voice. Took a couple days off. I feel good. I actually felt so good I did a Woo report before Game Day Live talking about the Devils' glut of centermen that they have. But coming over the wire, Janne Kokkonen is out indefinitely, out on IR. So I guess Mason Geertson's probably going to take his place. I don't know. I'm looking for the lineup. Also, Jack Hughes most likely will be playing today, coming off the COVID protocol list. Practiced yesterday. Also practicing in a regular practice jersey, Dougie Hamilton. Stein had a great interview with him. The trials and tribulations of dealing with the jaw injury while being a professional hockey player. Been on a liquid diet. His teeth were misaligned after he suffered that hit to the jaw by a puck. Vinny, it should be interesting. I'll keep on refreshing, who's in, who's not, whatever. But something of a big news that even Sherry Ross commented. Jack Hughes on the wing on the first line with Nico Hischier and Sharon Govich, the three centerman line.
Yeah, it's interesting to have that as a line. First off, it'll be nice to have Dougie Hamilton and Jack Hughes back. I assume they probably will both be back. They made a big deal about it yesterday, the fact that they were practicing with non-contact sweaters. And Dougie Hamilton was on the previous trip before their most recent one. So it kind of feels like a couple games in the making that Hamilton returns. Jack Hughes is for sure going to be back. We know that. Seeing him play wing, though, that's going to be interesting. I don't believe that Jack Hughes should be put on the wing ever. I hate it. It's been bad in previous experiments. But I can't recall. You can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe this is the first time they're trying him at wing with Nico Hischier. It's always been with somebody else. Am I wrong about that?
I think from a line perspective, 5-on-5, I believe you're correct. But from a power play perspective, I think that is different. But,
yeah,
I think right now, if it were up to me, I would put Nico Hischier on the wing. Only because Jack Hughes is, I think, more effective down the middle when he's a shoot-first type mentality. Also, it will free up Sharon Govich and Hischier buzzing around the net. I think Hischier can make that transition better than Hughes. And it's not to say Hughes can't play wing. It's just, why don't you just exploit what he's really good at? And you have more room down at center than being on the wing. You got the boards to deal with, but as a centerman, you can gallivant and freelance. But at the same time, these guys are so big and so fast and so skilled. It really doesn't matter at this point, other than taking faceoffs. That's just my opinion, but I'd rather see Hughes, down center than turning over the puck as a winger.
Yeah, so I think of a couple wingers in the NHL right now that drive offense like a center. And immediately comes to mind Patrick Kane, Johnny Gaudreau, Jonathan Huberdeau, Mitchell Marner, Pasternak, Hall, guys like that. They literally look like centermen outside of taking the faceoff. And so if Jack Hughes can do that, go for it. I remember Artem Anisimov. He was the centerman between Patrick Kane and Artemi Panarin. And he just went to the net. He was a winger that took faceoffs. And Panarin and Kane did all the work on the wings. You wonder if something like that could happen with Jarangovic, Hischier, and Hughes. In the future, I would like Hughes and Hischier to be separated, both centermen, because I think that creates probably more depth. Each of them have proven they could drive their own lines. And then if Dawson Mercer takes a step next year, no longer being a rookie, bringing in a couple different people, obviously the back end is going to improve with someone like Luke Hughes coming up. We hope Mohamedoulan comes up at some point throughout the next couple years. I think the D can help make the wingers' lives easier by just being more gifted and stronger on pucks. And obviously you get the good goaltending, and then you have a recipe for success. But the Pittsburgh Penguins, they're not an easy team to match up against. And I believe Evgeny Malkin is back from his COVID little issue. He came back from his long injury. He hadn't played in over 10 months. And then he came back a couple weeks ago, scored a goal in his very first game played. He's been outstanding. He's over point per game since his return, and then he gets hit with COVID. So if Gino's back in the lineup tonight for Pittsburgh, I think that obviously creates extra depth for them. They got Gensel. They got Rust playing out of his mind. And then, of course, one of the all-time greats, Sidney Crosby, sitting on 499 career goals. Lots of people probably believe today's the day. It's a hard team to play against because they do the Crosby-Malkin 1-2 punch, and you got to try and match up against it. And that could be New Jersey's way of keeping Hughes away from Sid. In terms of, you have him on the wing for this game, Hischier's doing what he does against Sid, and then you got Hughes on the wing. And then when Malkin comes out, you try and shut him down using someone like McLeod. There are lots of different ways you could go about it. Obviously, Pavel Zacha has seen his time, in defensive roles and stuff like that. Lots of trade rumors surrounding Pavel Zacha lately, too, specifically with the Vancouver Canucks. But it's going to be definitely an interesting game because the Devils they're playing well over the last two games. I think the comeback win over the St. Louis Blues means a lot. I still don't love giving up 4 goals, but John Gillies, Nico Dawes. It's not old school Mackenzie Blackwood. Martin Brodeur's not walking through those doors anytime soon. So, you got to score some goals if you want to win these games. And Pittsburgh has an outstanding netminder, the all-star, Tristan Jarry. And it's going to be hard to beat him. You got to get bodies in front, move the Pittsburgh defensemen, get Jarry moving his feet, make nice passes, get good shots. Someone like Nathan Bastian can be very impactful against an outstanding goalie like Jarry. So I'm looking forward to today's game a lot. I like watching Pittsburgh. I watch Pittsburgh a lot. They're probably one of my 5 most watched teams. And I'm very much looking forward to this game. I go into every game, even the last week when I said they'd lose, I was just trying a little reverse psychology. I go stupidly into every game believing the Devils have a chance to win. And if they win today over the Pittsburgh Penguins and make it 3 in a row, that would mean a lot to me because, you're missing Kuokkanen. I don't think Bratt is playing. But
no, I don't think he is. For sure, Dougie Hamilton is not. Manestein just tweeted out. Somebody asked.
Dougie Hamilton is not. Okay.
Yeah, he is not. She said still getting comfortable with his new helmet protection, but getting closer. And that's to be expected. I mean, he just had one practice. I mean, if there were playoff implications with this game, you would think that Dougie Hamilton would do everything in his power to be in this game, but he's got time. Let him heal. Right now the Devils are on a 2-game winning streak. They're trying to get themselves out of the cellar. And if the Devils were to win today with Tampa, again, these are makeup games, total makeup games. Remember, there were several games that were postponed because of COVID. We should be talking about the Olympics and the guys going overseas to play from the NHL. But instead, we've got these bonus games, and I think right now, the Devils can pull this off and get 2 solid points where Pittsburgh gets none, although wouldn't really make a difference. You're talking about a 3-game winning streak, them playing Tampa Bay Lightning on Tuesday. That's something to talk about. But, at the same time, let's be realistic here, Vinny. This team had 2 bad streaks recently. 7-game losing streak. Then they, before that they beat Carolina, and then there was another 6-game losing streak. And then the month of December was just horrible, absolutely horrible. The only team that they could beat before the reset was the Philadelphia Flyers, who they were slumping. So right now, I think you made some good points about Jack and Nico, because at some point in the future, you want these two playing together right now. At some point in the future, I can foresee Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier, one of them or both of them, double shifting when the game's on the line and the Devils are down by a goal and you try to shorten up the bench and you play Jack Hughes with Nico Hischier and another winger, and then you put Jack Hughes on his normal line with his normal wing. Jack Hughes is a type of player that you would double shift, or even Nico Hischier for that matter. If you need an offensive punch or if you want to go defensively, I would double shift Nico Hischier, on certain lines, just to get your captain out there to help defend, if you're up a goal or two. But sometimes you want to shorten up the benches towards the latter stages of the game. And I think it's a good idea right now while the Devils are still in that development stage, because, we're far from the playoffs. Get Jack Hughes going. You know what? Maybe I'd like to see Jack Hughes play a wing right now. Here's the time to do it. See if he can become a multi-dimensional player, not just a centerman.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You make some good points, and, that could be him being bad on the wing last year and the year before. Could just be a product of his natural development. I mean, we saw in the All-Star game and throughout this season, he's a point-per-game player. He makes magic happen when he has the puck on his stick. Yeah, he's had some turnovers that are not the tasty kind, that have led to some other goals for the opposition. And that's obviously, that could be a product of obvious development with his decision-making. And it could be, just lack of growth to that point in time. So we'll see what he's made of on the wing today. You brought up the standings and, getting 2 points and Pittsburgh getting none and it not really meaning anything because the Devils are so far out of it. I saw a tweet that did some math. The Devils would need to go 30-4 the rest of the way to reach 99 points. So they're not going to the playoffs. Nobody thinks the Devils are going to the playoffs. They're not even going to come close, probably. They probably have a better chance of getting Shane Wright in the draft lottery than they do, making it to the playoffs as an 8th seed, which is sad that I'm saying that already on February 13th, Super Sunday. I'm saying that the Devils have a better chance of winning the lottery than making it to the playoffs. But there's an opportunity here to show what you're made of and be ready for next year. And another year of Jack, Nico, Bratt, Sharangovich, all these guys proving. I think Ty Smith is going to be awesome next year because he's going to suck the rest of this season because he's just, it's a sophomore slump. And then he's going to come back next year and people are going to be like, oh, yeah, Ty Smith was actually pretty good and he just had a bad sophomore season like a lot of defensemen do. So, even guys like, Keith and Victor Hedman and Letang, those guys didn't just light the league on fire when they first came in. Sometimes guys, Brent Burns, it took Brent Burns till he was like 28 to really become what he was as a defenseman. So, and imagine if the Sharks gave up on him. The Minnesota Wild gave up on him and they traded him for Charlie Coyle. And now the Wild probably would have loved to have Brent Burns in those mid-2000s years when they had Parise and Suter and Brodin and, those years they were making into the second round but could never advance past that. Yeah. So giving up on guys like that, it's interesting. Like I said, though, you have an opportunity here to get ready for that next season and play well to close out the year and come into next year. Oh, if I'm Nico Hischier, I finished the season with 50 points in my last 45 games. I'm ready to go next season. Jack Hughes, I finished with 60 points in my last 50 games to end last season. Maybe next year I can reach 80 points, 90 points. You have Pittsburgh today. You've historically played well against the Penguins at home. Evgeny Malkin was the only player in the NHL to name The Rock as his least favorite building to play in. It was 2 years ago on one of those little surveys that they do for the players. Then on Tuesday, you play the Tampa Bay Lightning. Okay, the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the last 2 Stanley Cup championships, and they are dominant again this year. They could go for a third. I think they need to add a piece or two at the deadline, but that's a story for another day. Then you have the bye. Okay, what do you like to do on bye weeks? Do you like to go sit on a beach? Do you like to train? Personally, I would go sit on a beach somewhere because I live in 10-degree weather for 5 months of the year. So if it were up to me, I'd go to a beach. I do know it just snowed. Yeah, it snowed there, and it was flurrying here yesterday. But then when you come back from the break, you have Pittsburgh again, but this time it's in Pittsburgh. So okay, go try and match up against. Let's see what you're made of, Nico and Jack. Go match up against Sid and Gino in Pittsburgh, and then they come right here. Chicago, Illinois, Chicago Blackhawks, they stink. They just got blown out by the Blues yesterday. So you have a chance here to really show what you're made of against some good teams and then really feel the puck and play well against a team that you're probably more talented than. So I'm excited for the next stretch of Devils games. I know they got that. It's more than a week off, but it's a bye plus missing some time. One thing not a lot of people realize, there were some games from later in the season that were pushed up so that they can make up other games later in the season after what was supposed to be the Olympic break. Like, I'm pretty sure their game against Ottawa last week was a game from April that was moved up to now so that they can put a game that was canceled because of COVID in April. Like, there was just an entire schedule change. Yep. We wouldn't even be doing this show right now if it weren't for COVID, because we would be, in the Olympics. We'd be doing Happy USA Sunday instead or something like that. I think they played this morning against Germany, if I remember correctly, or tomorrow, something like that. But, I'm revamped. I want the Devils to do well. I want to see the players play well, first and foremost. If they lose today 4-3 to the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sid scores his 500th goal in overtime, and the Penguins win and go off into the Super Bowl sunset, I'm not going to cry about it. How did Jack Hughes play? How did Nico Hischier play? Ty Smith looking better? How about Sharon Govich? He getting pucks on net? How's the power play looking? They making some crisp tape-to-tape passes, 1-Ts and all that? If that's what happens, that's all I care about at this point. I'm not mad at wins or losses anymore. Sure, I'll stand up and cheer when they win, but I want to see the right guys that I know are going to be on the Devils for the next 10 years play well, because that's what you're building for at this point. We've talked about 2025 1,000 times on this show. Let's keep it going.
2025. Enjoy the pain right now, Devils fans. Enjoy the growing pains. Feel the burn. Because come 2024-25 season, mark my words, that should be the turning point, and we'll never look back. And I think there's something to be said that when Ray Shero came in, ownership group making a change, changing of the guard, Lou Lamoriello, been with the Devils for 28 years. They picked Ray Shero, which was a very good pick, although the press releases said it was Lou's idea to pick Ray, but I don't quite believe that. But Ray Shero, his father, Fred Shero, 2 cups with the Stanley Cup with the Flyers, Broad Street Bullies, very well-respected head coach. Also, did you know that he was part of the Devils organization, Fred Shero?
Fred Shero? No, I did not know that, actually. I know about Fred Shero. Did not know about the Devils relationship, though.
Yeah, in the early 80s, I believe he was part of the broadcast team, if I'm not mistaken. So, but anyway, enough about that. Then ownership group made that change. and put Tom Fitzgerald right in the middle of it. And that was very tough. I mean, that press conference was weird. It was awkward when Joshua Harris, who rarely speaks, is speaking at a press conference, and he put the interim tag on Tom Fitzgerald. Tom Fitzgerald, his mentor, his buddy, his good friend, parted ways, suddenly takes over, and then a month and a half later has to deal with COVID, 9.5 months without hockey. To give Fitzgerald a fair shake, you have to go to the 2025 season. And that's where I would be patient, because I'm kind of interested to see how this team would do by then. But the problem is Tom Fitzgerald is tied with Ray Shero. He was there the entire time, but this looks like a lot different team than it was under Ray Shero. I like this team better because I'm starting to see some of the picks flourish. I think, me personally, I think Tom Fitzgerald's picks have been better than Ray Shero. I mean, you can obviously, Ray Shero, to his credit, got Nico Hischier right, but Jack Hughes was a no-brainer. But the jury's still out on Ty Smith. Mikey McLeod is definitely, raising eyebrows right now. And Nathan Bastian is doing better. But the Pavel Zacha, although you could probably say that was possibly Lou's pick at that time. But who really knows? Ray just got there. So, with that said, Vinny, I'm willing to be patient just because I like Fitzgerald. What I don't like about Fitzgerald is I want to see people fired at times. I want to see accountability. But maybe you know something we don't. Maybe he just likes to let things play out before he makes his decision.
Yeah. That's really fair. A team that I want to believe is something that the Devils can kind of hang their hat on and believe that they can become, or something similar. I look at the Florida Panthers, and I remember that year. You can help me here. I want to say it was 16-17. It was either 16-17 or 15-16. They made it to the postseason, and they put together a very good series against the New York Islanders. But Tavares scored in overtime on Roberto Luongo to send the Islanders to the second round for the first time in 20-something years, right? But people were like, oh, the Panthers, they're going to be back. They're going to be back. The Panthers, they got Barkov. Huberdeau's a young developing prospect. Aaron Ekblad is a pretty good young prospect. And then they went 2 straight years without making the playoffs. And it was all right, when the heck is Florida going to really take that next step? They got some of these good young prospects. I'm sure the most pessimistic Devils fans there were versions of those people in Florida with the Panthers who were so pessimistic that this team would ever do anything, because Aaron Ekblad didn't light the league on fire for his first 3 or 4 years, but he was a number 1 overall pick. Barkov took a minute to develop. Huberdeau was a 50-point guy. Okay, fast forward to last year or 2 years ago with the COVID. They made it to the bubble, and they probably would not have made the postseason if COVID never happened and there was no bubble, because extra teams got into the bubble than the typical Stanley Cup playoffs. Okay, they lose to the Islanders again in the bubble. Okay, well, they probably didn't deserve to be there anyway. Nobody was really that surprised. Then last year happens. They roll through the makeshift Central Division. And they're right there with Tampa Bay and Carolina for the top 3 teams in that division. I think Nashville snuck in as the 4th seed because the Blackhawks fell out of it. Florida puts together an outstanding series against Tampa Bay, of all teams. And now we look at them this year. They're top 3 in points percentage in the NHL. Barkov, who was just a high draft pick that was a two-way guy. Sound familiar? A high draft pick two-way guy who was a little slow offensively to start his career. Sound familiar? Huberdeau, a high-flying, offensive-minded player that had a little bit slow start to his career, but then really started to show flashes of brilliance. Sound familiar? Aaron Ekblad, a high draft pick defenseman who wasn't lighting the league on fire to start. Now he's a Norris Trophy contender. Sound familiar? Looking at you, Ty Smith, or it could be Luke Hughes or someone. You know, the Devils have a lot of good young defensemen. They already have Dougie Hamilton signed. The Florida Panthers didn't have a Dougie Hamilton back then. There are just everyone gets mad at like talking about patience, and I understand. They haven't made the postseason since 2018, and before that, it was winning the Stanley Cup or losing in the Stanley Cup final in 2012. We all remember. But really, what happened in 14, 15, and 16 is irrelevant to what's going on right now. Yeah. And then really, the only thing that's relevant from 18, 19 are the draft picks that are on the team right now. Heischer, Hughes, Smith, Bratt. Like, the people who drafted Pavel Zacha and Mikey McLeod are not there anymore. So, you know, and that's probably for a reason. So I'm not saying the Devils are going to become the Florida Panthers. I'm not saying Heischer is going to be good as Barkov, but maybe he will. It's possible. The scouts all thought he would be. And based on the way he's played the last couple games, it's certainly possible. He had 3 points against the St. Louis Blues, who are one of the best teams in the league at clamping down in the third period. So, you know, there are reasons to be angry, and they might get killed 5-0 today, and you and Scotty are going to come on post-game and be all mad that the Devils got killed 5-0 by Pittsburgh, but they also might win. And, you know, it might be another good game for Nico. Jack Hughes might help them unlock something. They are wearing the black. They're wearing the jerseys, which is fun for Super Bowl Sunday. And, you know, I'm just excited. I want to believe, like, why watch if you're going to, like, not believe in what they're doing? And I don't believe in everything they're doing. Trust me. There are some mistakes that are being made. I probably would have fired the coach during the 7-game losing streak. You know, 6 teams in the NHL have fired their coach this season, and most of them see at least a little bit of a spike since then. Yep. I know the Hawks, they've had a significant increase since firing Jeremy Colleton. Now, they're bad. Don't get me wrong. They have talent issues. But, you know, at least they try harder. And they play a system that fits their roster. So, you know, there are just so many decisions that the Devils can make that'll help them forward. But maybe I'm in the minority. I don't know. People hate me online for it. I like what they got going with some of their young players. They just got to get better at developing the talent and finishing their chances and get good goaltending. That's a big key, too.
Yeah, and like I said, and a little bit more beef. Yep. I mean, people make fun of Geertsen, and I think it's unfounded, or even Bastian, you know, at times earlier in the year. But they play a certain role. And if you don't have those role players, then you're going to have to rely solely on what assets you have. You need to have role players to complete a good hockey team. So, you know, and sometimes you have talented players like Scott Stevens of the past, who used to be an offensive, defensive defenseman, to just be a shutdown defenseman and one of the greatest players of all time at that position, because he completely rebranded his game to be the leader and the shutdown, the game changer. You know, all it took was one Scott Stevens hit, and the whole mindset would change in a game. Ask Eric Lindros. He paid the price for it, for having his head down. Or, you know, against the Toronto Maple Leafs. That Maple Leafs team back in early 2000s with Matt Sundin, and they had Darcy Tucker, Ty Domi, all these, you know, guys, Wade Belak, all of them. These were tough players to go against, but the Devils managed to beat them twice in the playoffs. Twice.
Yeah. It's
and
true.
That wasn't easy.
You make good points, and I started to chuckle a little bit there when you brought up Geertsen, because isn't the record, like, outstanding when he's in the lineup? Isn't it, like...
Well, you know what? There's a reason for it. There's a reason for it. And this is why I hate analytics, because nobody can explain it. I could explain it from a psychology standpoint. You play better when you have somebody out there that has your back and not have to worry about, it's a deterrence. I mean, it's kind of what they say in politics, peace through strength. You've got Geertsen, you've got Bastian, you've got Mikey McLeod. Eventually you're going to have Miles Wood back. You've got Dougie Hamilton, Ryan Graves. When you've got that type of beef on your team, you'll think twice about pulling shenanigans. And, how you deter the Tom Wilsons of the world is, look, if Tom Wilson's going to take liberties, in the past it would have like, oh, it's Tom Wilson. Devils into if he were to do it now, when you have these guys in the lineup, he'll have to pay the price. And again, people mistaken me going back to the antiquated Broad Street bully days. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is, you police it through strength, that you have these guys. Because if you take liberties on Jack Hughes, ever since Jack Hughes suffered that injury, that shoulder injury, ever since then, anybody that touches Jack Hughes, you even have Jesper Bratt going after players. It stops the shenanigans. Otherwise, you're going to allow teams to do it. And that's why it's a total – nobody talks about that because it's something you don't find in fantasy sports. It's something that analytics can't – there's no metric to it. Having players like Geertsen on the team makes everybody better because they don't have to fear of having to deal with shenanigans like that. Another person can – you got role players to handle that stuff. That's all I have to say.
And few teams know that idea more than Pittsburgh. I mean, Sidney Crosby's been run a bunch in his career. And finally they started to catch on. They had Brooks Orpik for a minute.
Brooks Orpik. He was nasty.
And, Paul Martin, they took from the Devils. Like, they would just go after guys sometimes to help, combat this stuff. They traded for Kunitz. And Kunitz is like a high-scoring winger, but nobody's messing with Kunitz anytime soon. Kunitz was awesome, and he was a great line mate for Sidney Crosby. And he's having success this season playing with Rust. No, I wouldn't want to fight Rust. Rust is huge, and he's mean, and he's strong. And guess what? He's got a little bit of skill too. He's like a diet Tom Wilson, Brian Rust.
Yep.
He's a less gifted Tom Wilson.
Sidney Crosby played his first ever NHL game against us back in 2005.
Against the Devils, yep. Parise and Crosby made their debuts against each other. Yep.
Yeah. And we were there. And back in those days, the first 2 years of Sidney Crosby's career, he got hit often because he was supposed to be the next one. He was. But Pittsburgh they got beef. I mean, Brooks Orpik, my goodness. He broke Eric Cole's neck, for crying out loud.
Yep.
Not a smart thing to do.
And didn't they get Rupp at one point too? They wanted Rupp.
Yes. Yep.
And there's one other one. Oh, I'm picturing him. He fought someone on the Flyers. I can't remember his name. He was a big guy. Like, obviously he's a big guy. They're not going to get small guys to defend Sidney Crosby. It's not Hal Gill that I'm thinking of. If you started ripping off some Pittsburgh Penguins fighters, I'm trying to think of his name.
I remember that. Are you talking about the series where Pittsburgh and the Flyers were in the playoffs, and all it was WWE? That there was a fight every 5 seconds, and I remember they were playing at Wells Fargo Center, and even the team announcer and the team, the guy that was playing the music, the audio video was playing like Hulk Hogan clips.
Yep, and then a guy dressed like Hulk Hogan. Yeah, they had
Ray Emery was fighting people. If you remember that.
Yes, I do remember. R.I.P. Ray Emery. He was awesome.
Yeah.
I was just that was fun, but I remember when Pittsburgh was one of those teams that they needed more beef, and they went out and got it. They won a couple cups, and I don't know. Protecting Sidney Crosby was their MO back then, and it really should be now. I'm trying to find right now as we do this podcast the person that I'm thinking of. They had Robert Bortuzzo, Letestu. I don't know. I can't remember who it was that I was thinking of. There's definitely a lot of big dudes on this team. So Robert Bortuzzo, 6'4". Simone Dupree, 6'4". No one was messing with Sidney Crosby at that point.
Was it Eric Goddard?
Eric Goddard was not on this team.
Ryan Vanderbush?
Oh, Ben Lovejoy. That's a fun name to talk about, isn't it? Oh, Matt Cook. Matt Cook. That's one that's fun to talk about. They love.
Yes,
oh, it was
Matt
Aaron
Cook.
Asham. It was Aaron Asham who I'm thinking of. Aaron Asham likes to fight people and be a disruptor. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of, was Aaron Asham. But Matt Cook, too. I forgot about him.
Oh, he was nasty. So let's go over predictions tonight. Vinny, as we're in a little bit of overtime right now. What are your thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, I cracked a joke about the Penguins winning in overtime 4-3, so I'll reverse it. Devils in overtime 4-3.
I think I'm thinking 5-4 Devils. How about making 7-4 Devils?
All right. 3 straight games with 7 goals.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, right.
What about the Super Bowl?
Oh, boy. Super Bowl, I'm 31-30 Bengals.
Ooh. High scoring and the Bengals. See, I got 35-14 Rams. I don't think it's going to be close.
Yeah, I mean, they do have the home field advantage. I mean, that's pretty cool. But you know what? It probably, it just seems like it's too scripted for LA. That this is what the NFL needed. Everything that's been going on, this is what the NFL needed. And then, I don't know, I know Odell Beckham Jr. is waiting on his baby at any moment now, and that's going to cause some drama. But, who knows? That's
I
why
believe it's the first, I'm thinking back, it's the first Super Bowl without Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Ben Roethlisberger, or the 49ers in like 20 years.
Wow.
Pretty crazy.
Wow. The new blood's in. And hopefully the Devils will be in the Stanley Cup Finals soon in 2025.
Let's go. And then the Bears could play the Giants. The Bears could play the Giants in the NFC Championship game, right?
Yeah. Well, want to thank all those tuning in. Just remember, Devils After Dark after the game. No Let's Go Devils podcast at 9 p.m. Eastern because of the Super Bowl. So enjoy the game, everybody, and the Super Bowl. Till next time, let's go Devils.